I got one, thanks.
Okay. Start meeting at 4:06. Roll call, Ed, Mario, Casey, Pat, Donna, Armin's here, Kathy, Gary, Robin. Fiona will be late. John is here. Ellen is here. Sharon, again, thank you. Sue F., David, Laurel, and Amy. Okay. Approval of the agenda for the June 1st meeting. Got a motion? Pat, second?
I'll second.
Armin.
I got it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes aren't finished. We'll have them for next meeting. Pat and public portion. Members of the public and staff may bring to the committee attention information, ideas, or matters concerned related to all duties and responsibilities of this committee. Committee will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. Time for individual remarks will be apportioned according to the number of speakers and will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker unless extended by the chair. Anybody on public? No. Okay. Amy, you're up. Cooked.
Yeah, that's why it's late, huh? Yeah.
No, that's okay. I can skip.
Wait. Somebody's waiting. Yeah, they're waiting.
Okay.
Ready, Amy?
I am. I'm checking for my colleagues.
Oh, okay.
Ellie's
They're
checking for my
coming on right
colleagues. One of them's playing music.
Oh, yeah. I have this stuck in the screen.
Okay, well. Let's see. So today's agenda is to sort of recap what we've been doing as a design team for the past couple of weeks. I believe the last time we were here, well, I was remote, but Kent was here, and he gave a debrief of the meeting that he had with the mayor. There has been some new information since then, and I don't know if Kemp has joined us.
He's not yet, he's
in limbo.
He's in limbo.
He's trying to get into the meeting. So I'm gonna skip item 1 on my agenda. I'm gonna go to security committee meeting, and then we'll do a floor plans review, and hopefully Kemp will be in by then. So last week, we had a meeting of the security committee for this project. And I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of decisions that were made. In fact, we didn't really make a lot of decisions. It was mostly informative, and decisions will be forthcoming in the next few meetings. But it was a good start to understand what the requirements of the SSIC are. And that is a document that was produced by a group after the Sandy Hook tragedy in Connecticut. And I say in Connecticut because it only applies to Connecticut schools. And I've been to many national conferences, and I'm always surprised that there's only 2 states in the whole United States that have security guidelines for schools still.
Kemp is here now.
Oh, great. Kemp, we're going to go back to the Bessie Parkett section later.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry to be late. Had trouble getting on.
We heard, no problem. So at At our committee meeting, I referenced the SSIC document and explained to everyone that the decisions, that document is really a lot of guidelines, and the decisions on how much or how little both hardened security measures you take for the building construction and for the security systems that you install is really district by district decision. And so the state requires you to follow the guidelines, but for the superintendent to actually sign off that the security committee has made these decisions on behalf of your district, because they do vary sort of from most conservative to most open policies. But it is a 9-section guideline, and we're going to go through each of those sections in the security meetings. Those guidelines are on the next couple of pages in your handout. Primarily, the architecture of the building handles the some of the security measures, and then the technology or the security consultant handles quite a bit of the others. So I'm going to run through some of the principles of the guidelines, and most of these are just good practice, and we don't need your input. We're just going to implement them. And then some of them which are financial in nature, like the level of ballistic glazing and where that glazing occurs, and the type and amount of electronic hardware, access control, and security cameras. Those are also decisions that you'll make, but not in any of these meetings. So the site security principles really try to limit the access to the building and buy time, so that when or if an occurrence happens at the school, you keep intruders out and you buy time for the first responders to get to the site. But your best security is eyes on the parking lots, eyes on the entrances, and having very alert folks in your main offices and at the security cameras. So we like to control a number of access points to the school, and they do recommend one primary entry point, which will happen here on Major Bessie Drive, because the connection at Daily Drive will be gated. And we did make a decision in that meeting that the gate will be electronically controlled. Another site safety feature is to separate parent, bus, and staff circulation. And in the case of the high school, also student access of student drivers. So we have clearly separate car and bus loops and one decision point where that intersection would occur. Providing a buffer between the parking and the main entry is another line of defense. And so we haven't shown them in our renderings yet, but we'll have concrete bollards or benches and other site plantings that will protect your entries and not allow cars to breach. That last slide, as well as this one, really demonstrates the views that you'll have from the offices. The main entrances really do have all eyes on the entry from Major Bessie and the parent loop, because we will not allow for any parking here right against the school building for a few reasons. Fire lane also, but if any car is parked there, that's a first sign of, something's wrong. Nobody should actually be parked there. And then we'll make sure that people are visible as they're walking toward the building. There's a recommended buffer between parking and recreation areas. in most cases. This is really a recommendation that we're very conscientious of for our elementary school designs, so that playgrounds are not without fencing and, out in front. But in this case, we do have a retaining wall. That parking lot where the bus loop is will be below the level of the fields, just because of how your grade is on site. So those fields are sort of up where they are now and toward the back of your existing building, which is higher than where the entry is. And we didn't talk about the extent of perimeter fencing at the security meeting, but that is another decision that will be made at that meeting. Because some of your school property is already fenced. And so how much of that can remain? What parts of that do we need to replace, and what do we need to put in new? And while it is very important to keep as few doors as possible for entry, for just controlling who's in your building, and we'll go through an entrance example in a moment, we do want to make sure that there are multiple points for incident response for the fire and police when they need to attend or come to the school during an incident. So in yellow, these are the, I'll call them minor doors. Those are egress doors, and they're either at the bottom of a stair, or they're near an assembly area like that auditorium where the public, in case of an emergency, will need to exit. Those will also be available for entrance, but only for those first responders. And then this is an example of the entrance to the high school. Your middle school will have a very similar locked vestibule. So anything I say here really applies to both of the main entrances for this building. But we're going to have this one location available for visitors during the day. The only exception to that is visitors will also be able to go to the central office door and be buzzed in by a different person. But here at the school entrances, there will be a buzz or a button outside, camera, and the person sitting in the main office will be able to see who it is and let them into this vestibule. The vestibule is still then locked. And so there will be an exchange of credentials. There's going to be a pass-through window, like a teller window here, where the person manning the desk will check in with the visitor, get their ID, badge them, provide them with a lanyard, however you normally allow your visitors in, maybe it's a sticker. And then that person will then be buzzed either into the building if there's someone who is familiar with the building, knows exactly who they're going to meet, or the person they're going to meet meets them at that door. Or they'll be buzzed into the waiting area and they'll sit here and wait for their next meeting or whatever, or wait for their student. So it's going to be a two buzz-in approach and a credentials window. We then ran through information about the security cameras and surveillance. And that's something that Allie and Ed and others are working with our security consultant on. And also because the district would like to have similar facilities at each of the buildings, right? So you're looking at a new system district-wide. So that's security cameras, access control. We also talked about that, and those are your card reader or fob entrance credentials, and how those can be used at multiple buildings, or perhaps your first responders key fob to their police department could be given credentials to open a door at one of the schools if you choose. But that'll also all be on a timer and will be able to be controlled from a computer. You can allow or not allow someone to use the door. You can allow them to use the door between certain hours, and then it gets turned off. Or, yeah, so it's all controlled, but can be set up at first to not be manual, so that at certain times you might have the entrances unlocked. If in the event of a basketball game, the entrance near the gymnasium might be unlocked, even in the evening, or a band concert or something. And then during the day, when buses are coming or parent drop-off is occurring, then those doors will be also in the unlocked position, electronically unlocked. We ran through some options for school glazing and videos that you can see online. So I just thought I would include those. They're on YouTube, available for anyone to see. No decisions to discuss at this point. So that I think really recaps the first security committee meeting. And so we will be making some decisions on that glazing, where it's going to occur, how much of it. And it'll be a great meeting when that happens, I think, because we'll also have the schematic design estimate in hand at that time. So we'll be able to balance it with the budget and kind of the options that are appropriate. Kemp, do you want to go back and talk about Bessie Park?
I can. We spoke about it at the last meeting, but I think there have been some developments since then.
Right. So I just thought we could recap that.
Sure. I guess the developments that we heard, good afternoon, everyone, by the way. The developments we heard at the initial security meeting was that the police department would not support the relocation of the Major Bessie Drive. That was news to us at that meeting, and I think others were a little surprised by that position, final position, but that seems to be a firm position from that office. So we will have to redevelop this this portion of the park to integrate the existing drive with the required parent drop-off and the drive that we have along the east corner. So we'll be working on that over the next week or two and have something to show at the next building committee meeting.
And I've put this photo in because, and I don't know if you really, because I didn't have the benefit of seeing the meeting the other day, if you ran through this photo at the time, but when you come in and you can see by the snow in the background here, there is a real knob that previous iterations of the driveway must have worked around. And unfortunately that exists sort of in where we'd like to have the car parent bus loop, drop-off loop and parking for visitors. So just something to contend with as we move forward and redevelop the site plan.
Just ask a question.
Yeah.
Did the police department say why they won't?
They
Yeah.
said that they had a traffic study done miraculously in the week between our last meeting and when we saw them, I think. So I did ask for a copy of that traffic study that we can use because we have a traffic study also in the works. We've done the traffic counts so far, and the traffic engineer was taking a look at moving that road. So it will be interesting to see, what they're said.
Is that typically from a process point, how that would typically work? Only because in other building projects I've looked at, what it looks like typically happens is the police do a study, building committee makes a recommendation, planning and zoning reviews all the information and makes a decision.
It seemed that, and Mario.
Yeah,
you can,
the big issues that the traffic officer had was
Amherst
pinch
Drive
point between Amherst Road,
and
too much in and out right at that intersection if we move the road. We were ready to counter that with going back to how it used to be, which is one way towards the trade school and one way the other way on the upper street. We never got that far. And the other portion was that they didn't feel in inclement weather that they'd be able to brake coming down the hill as well as they can now.
And that's
So-
why we asked them for their report.
It was no fooling around. It was no.
Yeah, that was it, John. Yeah.
But that's enough to make me think they're not very secure about what they said. And if you listen to the makeup of that committee, it was handpicked by people who are going to tell them what they want to tell them. So I'm with Fiona. I think it smells bad.
Well, we will be doing our own traffic study as well. So I think, we'll have a second opinion, if you will, in a few weeks.
I think your traffic study is gonna be much more in depth
Yeah.
as to what that those Yukon numbers are made available to. I mean, I could look those up. They're strictly just traffic, stop, traffic counts at the stop sign. I don't think they really looked at the slope all that much. They didn't have any plans at all to go one way. So it was a quick decision.
Yeah.
Chief Baldwin was, he was pretty sure what he wanted, and I'm sure he's feeling the traffic enforcement officer was opposed to it right from the start. I mean, weeks ago. It was just,
Was that before he retired, before the new one? came on?
Barton,
Oh, okay,
is that his name?
Bart Barone,
yeah.
Bart Barone.
Barone.
Barone, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it
Because
was.
the other one retired.
Oh, well, I didn't know when the timing was.
Yeah. No, he was about it right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that meeting the other day went, it was, Kemp was right. It was pretty abrupt and just no.
They just told us that as we're going through it.
It's non-negotiable. We're not doing it.
I'm not gonna defend the chief, but I could say that we would probably open ourselves up to appeals if we did go. If I lived on Amherst Street or Dartmouth, I'd fight it, hire a lawyer and fight an appeal. Start an appeal. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you're gonna double or triple the traffic on both those streets. And they have the right, like anybody else. I've been appealed on many projects. I would expect all you need is one person
Right.
to file something to stop the project, and that's probably the last thing we need. Not defending his decision, because I don't know what his traffic study says, but it could cause a problem for us.
I think we have to choose our battles.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty major inconvenience for these guys, but I'm sure they'll make it work.
And Kemp and Amy, because we told the chief, kids are gonna cross.
Yeah.
Right.
It's,
Under, just so you guys know, under Slam's proposal, nobody would be crossing traffic to get to a sidewalk. Whereas the way it sits now, people do cross traffic almost every second to go to the
Yeah,
pond,
Just,
right?
just as a thought, actually, we visited a college that had this concept where they had a very busy highway that cuts right through the campus, and they built a tunnel
Maris did that as
right
well.
underneath the driveway. I mean, in this case, it was a busy public road, not a driveway, but it would be something that you would want, obviously, you wouldn't want it to be too long or too
Well,
dark.
if
You'd
you
have
put
to
in
have
a
some
tunnel, imagine you lose parking spaces and
Right.
Well, you-
functioning space on both
No,
sides
no,
to
I'm talking
enter
about
into the
just a
tunnel.
pedestrian tunnel underneath. it.
No, that's what I mean, though.
You would lose that many
Yeah,
parking spots.
well, you would lose because you can't just, well, I suppose you could walk downstairs, but
Yeah.
that would hurt you with
ADA,
ADA stuff, right?
and you're dealing with high school kids walking under a tunnel.
Right.
Yeah, we're talking 40 feet, 50 feet.
There was a tunnel under the railroad tracks where I was growing up.
So,
That's all I can
It's a
think of.
personal experience.
We heard about that.
I avoided it like the plague.
I'm talking about.
I crossed the tracks.
So it's, again, we gotta pick our battles. If we were allowed to change the driveway, there was a bunch of hurdles to jump over with the whole Bessie Pond Foundation and things like that. I mean, Pat Fairchild was very relieved that this is the route it's going. So now all the work is contained on our property. The mayor says it's just gonna be a memorandum of understanding. Go do your thing.
Say our
Oh.
properties.
I do want to bring up one thing. If you look at the proposed on the left-hand side on the bottom of this slide, the drive or the drop-off and some parking that really is instrumental to the school site design is going to be over the property line onto the school or the park property.
She knows that, but they were all freaked out about us encroaching on the pond, and we really weren't going to, but, so.
But some portion of that's going to have to remain, at least in an initial concept.
It
So
is,
I don't want the message to be that we're not doing any more development on the park property.
no, I think she's looking at it more now as a renovation, so to speak,
Correct.
of existing conditions.
Okay.
That's
To make it a
better,
better place.
right.
Yep.
We'll use that parking, we'll use that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
park
only,
field. We'll just.
the only part that's gonna be, in air quotes, reserved for Bessie Pond, which there is no one there during the school day, pretty much, is that little circular tip.
Well, this was our original
Right,
design.
it'll change, yeah.
We had
No, I
offered
gotcha.
that this would all
Right.
be parking for the park. Now that it's going back to this design, I don't know that we need to designate separate. The parking lot in the original condition is a smaller lot than what we were proposing.
And is the skate park though leaving?
It's-
Is that-
Yes.
The skate park is leaving.
Yes.
And is, according to the police chief's concern, it's the point of entry into Major Bessie Drive that would cause the problem.
Right,
But
closer
does
up to
that mean
Amherst now.
there's no playroom between, so what if people came in that way, but somehow it swung through a different way? Or are we, does Major Bessie as it
They
exists
want a
now?
three-way stop sign, like they have now. And they can't achieve that without, obviously,
If you have multiple probably entrances and exits, then it might confuse things.
I
But
will,
you're just going into that entrance. Once you're there, three-way stop sign or not, do we have to keep Major Bessie Drive from where you get in as a street to where it is now? Or can that interim length of street, I don't know if it's even
Mhm.
designed possible,
right, I
swing
think
off?
you're
She's
asking
talking about
about
once you're in.
Once you're in that.
from here,
Yeah.
at what point can we start to swing this
oh,
to make
Yeah.
the,
I don't think that's gonna be a problem. They just want the entry
Yeah.
where it
Right,
is.
that's what I was
Yeah.
just trying
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah,
what-
we told them we were gonna try and put 3 lanes in, 2 in the morning and then 2 out
Yeah.
in the afternoon, so 2 out.
so we will also be hoping to widen it.
So we
To
can play with
alleviate
it,
some
yeah.
traffic.
As long as we leave the end.
There is a curb cut into the parking lot
Now, yeah, I know.
now,
Yes.
ironically, kind of right where we would have wanted
Where
it.
people take the shortcut so they don't have to go to the stop sign.
Right.
And they go out that way too.
Said one more thing. So I wasn't sure about this, but I would have liked for us to have had options to look at because we're really talking about 25 minutes in the morning, 25 minutes in the afternoon, 181 days of the year. My concern about the current entrance is right now, when you pull in, you constantly have kids going across the street from the basketball courts. But we're adding that splash pad, which I think is gonna create a lot of younger families coming, because you literally come off that grass right onto a blind spot entering. So I was
You're gonna have to
concerned
build
about the safety of
Well,
those
I
kids.
think they talked about,
Amy's team is gonna try to corral them using
Yeah.
fencing.
yeah,
Up, you know how they cross right now, right as you're pulling in?
Right.
move them up.
We're gonna corral them up the street to a proper crosswalk.
Yeah.
And if there's a fence there,
There's a winner.
great, they won't be able to dart across like they do now, for sure. We all know people run in front of traffic now, but we think we can corral them up the street a little further.
And then have a real crosswalk
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Maybe even with, signs, maybe flashing signs, stuff like that.
That sidewalk now, if I remember correctly, ends, I mean, like right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
you
it
can
does.
see where it ends,
Yeah.
actually, way down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there'll be proper sidewalks.
Crosswalks for
So
the
then less
crosswalks.
parking than there is now.
Well, once we'll do the
Yeah.
parking count. I don't want to give any
Which it
kind of
can be.
numbers.
Because then,
Well, but we need to use that for parking for the school.
yeah,
So, and the school is required about 470, is that right, Kim? Parking spaces?
I think it was 455 or something in that range.
So it's a challenge to get all of the parking necessary and all of the athletic fields and the school. So we do need every bit of that we can utilize.
the other piece also is in the summer, the pool and everything, they're always crossing, not necessarily the street out front, but there's always families and little kids parking
Yes.
and going over to the pool, using the playground or using the
Right,
basketball
right.
courts.
We were hoping that by giving them the olive branch of allowing for park-only parking here and the adjacency without a road to cross, that it would have, been a benefit to the park as well.
Yeah.
And that we thought that that was beneficial to both, but it's not, it didn't work out that way.
We'll get through it.
Yeah, we'll come back with some other options for the design.
Right, and to the point made about if so long as the entrance and the three-way stop stays where it is, how does the drive get reconfigured once we're into the site? You know, those options will be studied. We'll look at various ways of doing that and see what pans out the best solution for all parties.
Last question on this, I'm sorry. So does part of that study look at accident? So like it appears that there's been more accidents since that stop sign was put in than prior to that stop sign being put in?
No, less.
No, less?
Less.
Okay.
Yeah, although there was no backup given.
Yeah, he just told
You know, there
us.
wasn't a handout at Aaron's
Yeah.
style, right? There was like, nope, we're not doing it. So,
No, I would just be curious.
No, he said there,
Anecdotally, he said that there were
Yeah.
less
correct.
accidents now, and hopefully we'll get a copy of that
Okay,
traffic
Great.
study. I did request it. I can request it again after another week or so, and just as a reminder.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if you had gotten it yet.
No.
great. Thank you.
I will also call the chief tomorrow.
So I thought we would just run through the building plans that were in the schematic design narrative, and do a little deeper dive than what we've done at other meetings with this group. Sue and Robin are sick of it now, probably. We've met so many times in recent days. Here's a reminder of the site plan and fields layout. And then moving on to the first floor plan. Starting at the entrances, I'll run through the high school first. At the high school entrance, there's that locked vestibule that we just discussed. And there's a main office function with conference room and some offices. In slightly lighter blue, this is the nurses suite. And then back to that same blue color for administration, you'll see a series of offices and a suite here with its own like two little entrances, and that's the guidance department. There are shared conference rooms that come off the hallway that the guidance department can use or the main office can use that are in these locations. And this one might be a conference room as well. In yellow. This is essentially in yellow, the special ed suite. Some of this is actually being relocated right now to the second floor, the Thrive classrooms. But your life skills classrooms and your special ed offices and workroom will stay in this location. It's easier for first level access for that group. And then if you came down the sidewalk alongside the building, there will be a buzz-in entrance at this location on the first floor level, which will access a stair and an elevator. And at that point, if you're buzzed in, you can be buzzed up to the 4th floor for central office. So you'll see that on the 4th floor, essentially in this location with great views of the pond.
Thank you.
For friends of ours. So we have some pathway spaces at this level. This is a foods lab, I believe. So convenient to the dining hall and convenient to after hours events if they wanted to kind of share their the food that they've made in this area. And then in purple is your performing arts department. Some functions which are specific to the high school, and then some functions that are shared, and then a couple of other functions that are specific to the middle school. So the auditorium and all of its spaces, I would say that the layout is still a little bit in flux, and that we're really working with our theatrical consultant who just came on board. Now that the building kind of shape has evolved, now we'll dig into those spaces and really make sure that we're providing the right performing arts spaces. But the band room is sized for both the high school band and the middle school band at 2 different times of the day. It's accessed from this side for middle school, and it's accessed from this side for high school. And so they'll use that, again, at different times, but support spaces to the band room include some practice rooms, instrument storage, percussion storage. There's going to be a shared ensemble room, which we have multiple iterations of this. So the ensemble room happens to have been showing here. It's actually going to be in this area. And each of the schools has their own music tech classroom, which is keyboarding and heavily filled with equipment. So that takes care of this zone. Moving on for the high school students, this is their dining hall or the dining seating area. And this portion will be some part servery, some part back of house kitchen. The kitchen and the servery will serve both the middle school dining and the high school dining. Timing on that to be worked out, whether it's totally separated so that the lunch waves can happen at the same time, or whether it's offset, so middle school uses it and then high school uses it and then middle school uses it. And I think we have a couple of years to figure out exactly the process, but.
Is that a retractable partition or?
It is, so we're planning on a retractable partition here. It will be probably in the closed position for much of the day, school day. And it allows the right amount of access to the band room for the high school students, and because middle school can get to the band room from this side, and it just keeps middle schoolers and high schoolers from dining together. And then high schoolers will walk around and kind of behind this area, which is the middle school gym, and they'll get to their gymnasium, which is here, and all new locker room facilities and fitness room over here. There's also another room in this salmon color. Salmon is the pathway color, so when you see it on the plans, but that salmon colored space doubles as a trainer's room for athletic teams during the after school times. And it's also a space that will have a number of taping tables and equipment so that it'll be a hands-on learning space for students in that pathway during the school day. I have to go to.
Once this is finished, Amy will send it to me and I'll have a 11 by 17
That everyone can
that
have,
everyone
sure.
can have at the next meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, then you'll be able to actually read the spaces. I apologize. I know on 8.5 by 11, forget it, but hopefully you'll start to recognize the colors like we do. So, before I move on from the first floor, I'll just go through the middle school spaces. The entrance, main office function, school nurse function, and then some special ed spaces along here, and resource rooms. There are 2 academic classrooms on this floor that are opposite the orchestra room and the music tech room. And then there's a series of pathway spaces for middle school, which are your engineering maker spaces and a coding classroom or a computer lab that supports that. And we like that location a lot because it's sort of engineering and STEM on display. It's really nicely positioned where you might be able to see it from public parking in the evenings near that bus loop. You'll be able to see it if you come in for an after hours activity. They can really use this zone to, display what they're making. And so I think that's a nice proximity for them. And then the middle school gym, I already pointed out, is here. And I will let you know that there's a set of stairs at this end, of course, bathrooms to support everything, an elevator, and a set of stairs at this end. So the middle school has 2 dedicated stairs, bathrooms, and an elevator. The high school has 3 dedicated, let me see, does it have 3 stairs, Ken? 1, 2, 3, yeah. 3 sets of stairs and 2 elevators. Just the number of people that you want to move. And so at this end where there is an elevator and a stair, you'll note that on the next plan, which actually is going down a floor, that's a dedicated stair at the end of the middle school wing. That's how the middle schoolers will access their locker rooms and then go right back upstairs to the gymnasium, which is adjacent. Sorry. There's some mechanical spaces on the lower level. And then separately on the high school side, you have a stair in the center and a stair at the end and bathrooms here that will support not only going up all 4 stories, but also down this lower level where there are pathway spaces, art rooms, and more pathway spaces. So at this end is the dedicated child development lab. It's a pathway for the high school students, but it's also an actual working 12-student preschool classroom. It has a separate entrance. I've pointed that out, I think, during times when we've seen the renderings. And that will have its own buzz-in and door and card reader access and everything too. That will also be handy because at this level, they can go in and out right at grade and access a playground. So that's the child development zone. These are 3 large art studios. One is a ceramic studio, wet, and then the other 2 are other visual arts. Junior ROTC is also in this zone. Also convenient to have access at grade to the outdoors. They do some training exercises outside as well as in. So this next page is the second floor, so it's 1 level up from the main level. And you'll see that the gyms are still colored green because they're a 2-story volume, nice tall space. But at the end here, the second floor of the locker rooms is very heavily used. That'll be your athletic team's locker rooms and some office space for coaches and the AD. But that is not connected in any way to the second floor of the middle school. And the second floor of the high school wing, which is here. On the second floor of the high school wing, we have some dedicated engineering labs, STEM spaces. We have typical academic classrooms in that dark yellow. And we have the first pair of science labs that you're seeing. Science is going to stack here, 6 science labs, 2 each floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, with appropriate prep space and storage in between. And then also there's another set of pathway spaces at this location and a faculty workroom. So this is the first of the faculty workrooms that you're seeing, but it's nestled appropriately with most of your academic classroom spaces. And you'll see it on other floors as well. In the middle school wing, similarly, you have a lot of academic classrooms at this level. Here's where art classrooms take place, visual arts for the middle school. And in this case, because the middle school wing is only 3 stories total, you have 6 science labs to support those grades, and you have 3 on each floor, second floor and third floor, and those are stacked. So the way that the middle school works is team teaching, and so a house has its own administration, and that house will have an assistant principal, social worker, guidance, and they'll be on the same floor as their 7th and 8th grade house. Teachers, academics will all be located with their own small group of administrators. There is also some support space and classrooms for special ed on this level. And on the high school side as well, you'll see some lighter yellow, and that's for the resource rooms for pull-out first ed. On the 3rd floor, the specialty space in pink at the end of both wings is the library media center. So we love that. It's also sort of on display, and you'll be able to see it as you drive up. But it also has a great location because it's easy to access from the first stair that you enter, whether you're in the middle school or the high school. So if you do have any events that take place in the library like this, it is easy to access even though it's on an upper level. So in the high school wing, you've got library, you've got more of your typical academic classes stacked, you've got those science labs stacked, and of course the support spaces of faculty workroom, restrooms, etc. And on the middle school, instead of art, which you had on the 2nd floor, you have the library, media center. On the 3rd floor, a series of academic classrooms, the science labs stacked, and those same support spaces so that this house, 7th and 8th grade, is supported by their own administration as well. I think that's the highlights, 3rd floor. And then on the 4th floor of the high school, because remember we have stairs in the middle and at each end, the stairs in the middle and this end really support the high school function on that 4th floor. And so you've got the remainder of your academic classrooms, the stacked science labs, the stacked faculty workroom, and one last group of pathway spaces. And then at the end of the corridor, and it can be separated by double doors, which really only need to be opened for emergency, like fire emergencies. That's really a self-contained suite for the central office folks.
That's a stair for them, right, on the right? Up on top.
Yes, they have a stair, they've got their own bathrooms, so they don't need to share with the high school bathrooms. They've got their own kitchenette and workroom, and then also an elevator, because we want to make sure that there's accessible path for accessing your offices as well. I think that is all. If there are any questions about the layout, I'm happy to take them. We are in the process of really fine tuning what's next to what. So, go ahead.
Just curious, how many elevators are gonna be in the building?
4 elevators total. There are two-story elevators, 2-stop elevators, we call them. One will serve the locker rooms at the high school side. And one of those 2-stop elevators just serves the lower level academic spaces on the high school side. So it allows for handicap accessible access from the high school wing down to that level if needed, without going outside and parking in that separate area where the pre-K is. And then there are 2 full height main elevators, one for the middle school and one for the high school. That last one in the high school does open into the central office. But at floors 2 and 3, it opens into the academic area if needed.
Just one thing back to the site. I know I brought this up before, but now that you may be running out of parking, the cheapest parking you can put in is up against that slope, up near the fields. I don't know if you're gonna use that or not, but it would be a heck of a lot cheaper than
So,
scrambling for somewhere else.
right, and we certainly did add a lot of parking here.
Correct.
And if needed, if we end up with less at this
If you end
end,
up with less, right?
yeah,
That's the
I
cheapest
think
down
you're right. We don't want to have to cut into that slope if we don't have
You don't
to.
have to, but the
But
retaining wall's
if-
not that bad if it's only
Right,
4 feet.
exactly, yeah, just tow in parking, and I think that'll get heavily used on the weekends too.
Well, that's exactly right.
I actually drove up to the high school after the security meeting last week, just to, I don't know why. Keep visiting. But I drove around back and it was a madhouse. I don't know what games, I know there was a softball game going on, I'm not sure what else, but just because it's such a narrow street right now with not appropriate parking, it was tough to turn around. Any other questions?
You want to just review the coordination with the estimators today?
Oh, sure. So we had a couple-hour meeting this morning. The estimating team from ONG's office was on the line. The estimating team for SLAM, which is a company called PMNC, they're doing our estimate. We all walked through the plans similar to what we just did, not really talking about what program areas are in what, but rather, is this a 2-story space? How high is that? How wide is that? Spans of structure, discussions of materials, discussions of stair towers and what type of railings are where, just for pricing things correctly so that everyone could hear the same thing, both estimating teams, hopefully to make our reconciliation meeting, which will take place, when did we decide? The 18th?
The 15.
15th. Hopefully to make that day a little easier. Then we've got in a list of about 10 questions, an RFI on our schematic design package that we answered last week. I suspect we'll have more of those emails coming as they dig in and start really pricing it. But happy to provide those answers because the more questions they ask, the more I know that they're looking at the documents and we want accurate pricing. So, that's it.
Anything else for Amy?
Sorry, I just have 2 questions.
Yeah.
Do we still, this one doesn't show it, but when we're looking at the one with the 2, do we still have the ability to block off the schools from the cafeteria and gymnasium
Yes.
space?
Yes, we'll have cross corridor doors so that, you're right, I don't think this shows up well enough here, but after the bathrooms, but before the door to this class, and after these bathrooms, so probably somewhere in this area, we can have cross corridor doors. And depending upon how many doors we have at grade level between here and these out to the courtyard and out to the back. We may need those doors to be what we call double egress doors, which means that in a case of emergency, someone has to get out, they can go through. But we will be able to keep them at least in the closed position for access, so the public doesn't start wandering.
And then where the high school ends, the cafeteria there, is there a door in that hallway, the opposite side, the right side?
Yeah, so we have to go through this once we have the kitchen plans really designed well and the servery, because I'm not sure if it will be easiest for students to access the servery here and then come out. But yes, somewhere in here, we'll also be able to control it.
But on the other side, see how the line goes across, is that,
Are you looking here?
no, up by the music area, by the purple area?
Oh, here?
No, down a little bit, see how you have the line divided?
This line?
Yeah, that line.
Oh,
Is that
okay,
closed
so this will
also?
be this will be an operable partition.
All the way to the, in
All the way, yeah,
hallway
16
also?
feet
Oh, okay.
high, and it will close all the way to here during normal operating hours. And then if you wanted to open it up during an event, you could open it just to this location and have a corridor going by, or you could open it all the way and allow for events to take place in the cafeteria zone. So I
What
would,
would the capacity be with both of the cafeterias? I'm not holding you to it, just an idea for
Yes.
like community events.
so a couple hundred on the high school side and maybe 200. I would say in the neighborhood of 400 seats at tables. And then you've got 475 seats in the auditorium. And then you've got 1,000 seats in the bleachers here, 150 seats in the bleachers here. So quite a bit of public access space.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay,
Thank you, Amy.
thank you.
Next is, you have a payment of invoice to Construction Solutions Group for $19,534.40. It's an annual monthly payment that we approved. Could I just have a motion to pay it? Pat?
I'll second.
Second, Casey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just let you know, again, Slam's contract is going to the city council June 7th. I dropped it off at City Hall, at the city clerk's office and at the mayor's office. We just finalized O&G's contract, so we should have that for the next meeting we have here. Pat and Casey.
Pat. Motion and second.
The next is Torrington Parkade, young man.
I've made
You have
calls.
the, you have the.
I don't know if is that one in here?
Yeah.
I make calls and emails to these guys. They don't go to the office too much.
They're brokers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, they're developers, Gary.
No, they're brokers.
They're driving around
brokers.
throwing
They're
garbage in their
brokers.
back seat. So they both have read the email, but I have not gotten a response yet. It's gonna be interesting. We'll see what they have to say. Half the parking lot is about 150 spaces. I did go up to United Methodist Church yesterday too, to try to get out in front of that if they say no. That's about probably 150 spaces as well. It is a big parking lot. But other than that, I can't think of anywhere where we would go. So
Do we have a
we got our
carrot
fingers
for the,
crossed.
For those, the first group, the parkade, do we have any incentives that we can offer them for exchange?
I'm sure it's gonna come to that. What are you gonna do for us type of thing?
Exactly, I was just
right?
wondering if you have any ideas.
I think what we could do for them is cheap, maybe restripe the lot because
Yeah,
the
okay.
the lines are gone. Maybe plow the lot, our section.
Yeah.
Like John said, they have, not so much in the winter, but this time of year, they just have pallets piled everywhere. And also, as John said, they could reduce that footprint of pallets because it's just everywhere. I'm hopeful. I hope they see it
We could have our
as their
guys lined
civic
because we-
duty, but
Yeah,
line the
As I understand, Lowe's is pretty civic oriented.
Lowe's
and-
is,
And,
well, this
Well,
is,
yeah.
this is the owner, don't forget, right?
hopefully maybe we can offer, thank you or some sort.
Is there some way we can use the pallets in a shop class?
Yeah.
If the lease line includes their parking lot, it might be Lowe's,
It might be Lowe's decision.
because they
Yeah.
would control the lease.
Maybe give them advertising on construction sites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There you go.
Good. If it becomes Lowe's decision, right? If it's the developer's decision, there's not too much we can do for them. They're gonna ask for money.
I wonder if the lease isn't recorded.
So that's where we are on that.
Just a notice of that.
Hopefully I'll get a hold of somebody live in person.
Want to contact Lowe's right now?
Well, first I'm gonna find out,
Okay.
they may say, listen, it's not our decision, it's Lowe's,
Okay.
and then I'll contact Lowe's.
No, only to say that Lowe's has been very generous with the high school for things like landscaping
Yes.
supplies for improvement projects in the spring and so on.
Yeah. I'm actually hoping they say it's gonna be Lowe's decision,
Yeah.
because I think they'll be easier to work with. And we could do things like that, giving them advertisement on our board, our electronic board, or put it on the construction fence, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they were wonderful when we put the garden in at East School. I mean, they did all of it. They donated all the materials. They sent them all the labor.
No kidding.
Yeah, and all they wanted in return was the kids to write a thank you, which they proudly displayed in the entrance to
Yeah.
show their support of the
Yeah, I'm hoping they
project.
tell me to call Lowe's, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I meant to call them today, but.
Any other questions before we go on around comments? Donna, comments for the good?
I mean, other than exciting.
Yes. Sharon, anything?
no, thank you.
Moving in the right direction, it's great.
I'm good.
I'm looking forward to the 7th.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
So am I.
That's still on their agenda?
Yes,
Yeah,
as
just
a matter of fact, she cleared
everything off.
She cleared off because she knows there's gonna be a lot of people speaking and discussion and things like that.
Did we ask if she's gonna be there?
Or what?
They should be, because
If
there might
what?
be questions. Oh, for when she's gonna be there.
Yeah.
There's gonna be questions that we probably can't answer with respect to the labor agreements.
One thing I learned is you can't plan the questions.
Right.
What time is that meeting?
We don't know yet. We'll send it out once we find out.
Usually 6:30 is the go-to time, so I'm not sure, but that's,
And you'll just copy us on that.
Yep, of course.
Monday.
Next Monday. Alan, anything?
Thank you.
Brian?
Good.
Awesome.
Good meeting.
I just want to thank Councilwoman Wagner for coming tonight. It's appreciated.
you know what? This is not a problem. Not a problem at all.
We all appreciate it, you know.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You're doing such a phenomenal job. I have avoided Board of Ed meetings mostly because I have too many others, but my daughter's a teacher in the middle school, so I didn't want to have be conflicted with anything.
Right.
I know her well.
Yeah, I know. Everybody knows Coach D. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Allison, anything?
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I got something for Allison.
Oh,
Allison, how difficult would it be to have a streaming camera on the top of a building overlooking a construction site?
Oh, way ahead of you.
Good, good. We want a streaming camera that people could look at all the time.
Love it.
On top of that, we're gonna get some sort of GoPro. And what we're going to do, aside from just having a streaming camera, we're gonna angle the camera in such a way that it will also take one high-res picture every single day. So by the time the construction is finished, you're gonna
Awesome.
see the building
A
rise.
time
Good.
lapse.
You're
gonna do time lapse.
Nice.
Good.
Awesome thinking.
The other thing is, are these plans available for public viewing anywhere?
They should be, if they're going to do a public meeting, they should be part of that, but you might want to double check.
Well, I just, speaking in, just, I don't want anybody to be able to say, oh, you guys designed something that we never had any input on, but I don't think there's a website that actually
no,
shows
we'll have
this,
to,
right?
I'll talk to Amy and we'll get some.
Unless,
We can provide the files if there's a public website. that you
Send them
like.
to me.
I'll
take
talk
care of
to-
it.
Yeah.
maybe Allison, or maybe even, Carrie had the website for the,
I'll mention it to Carrie tonight.
Ellie will find it.
Yeah, we can put it on our website.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the only disclaimer that we have to
Yeah.
be careful about is for
Still in the
budgetary
process.
reasons, if we have to change things
Yeah.
along the way.
Of
You know
course,
how
yeah.
people get that, that's
Put
not
some
what
kind
you
of language in
said.
there.
It's a proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Draft,
Yeah.
draft.
working copy.
I think it would be beneficial for the public to be able to see it.
To that end, you can take the schematic design report or one of the files.
You have
that we
all of
I have all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it might be better, sorry, to do like a public information night where we could show it, people could ask questions, but we could also clarify
That would be
that
good.
Yeah.
this is a working process versus, and that, you know, I think it's so exciting to see it. I think other people would.
Yeah, that would be good.
Also, I think it's important to get out in front of things we've already identified about. I thought we were building a new school, why are you renovating to the
Right.
extent that those things, so if we can come out ahead of that and explain.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be much pushback on Councilman Cabanero's comments, right? I mean, I think once I typed something up, people said, okay, well, that makes sense, you know. He made it sound like we might have been just painting the block, you know, whereas we're taking it, you know.
We're building a new gym.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But it's on us to describe that. and
Correct, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
you're right.
Yeah, we didn't do a good job of that. No. Before the meeting.
No, that's
No.
correct.
We learn.
Yeah.
Well, it was picked up wrong too, I think. That's the rest.
I've watched the meeting 20 times, I don't think it was picked up wrong. Either way, it would be nice at some point if maybe we could get on the agenda to discuss the whole building project.
Where do you see that? This meeting, in a building committee meeting?
No, we're still on council.
No, I think,
Oh, on the city
I would
council?
like to see us do two things. One, reach out to the community to talk about
Right.
where we've come since the referendum.
And does that have to be a council meeting or can that be?
No, I'm thinking just a
meeting, Board of
public
Ed?
forum, like
building
a
committee.
town hall type meeting.
Yeah,
And then I think it would be also beneficial to go before city council, not on the 7th because we have all that other
Right.
stuff, but at a future meeting.
Also, the Board of Finance asked, remember?
right.
Or maybe a triple meeting with
Yeah,
the Board of
yeah.
Finance, City Council, just to talk about the
How often do
project,
those two meet together?
Well,
They don't.
They
only
don't
when
usually-
it's called.
Except budget.
Only budget.
About
Only
time.
budget.
Yeah, which.
well, we can invite them here. if they
Yeah.
want.
Sure, we
Yeah.
could.
We've had triple meetings with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have.
correct.
Yeah.
Ed can send out a nice long invitation.
Yeah.
I mean, the next 2 weeks, everybody's flat out
Right,
with
right,
finalizing
right.
budgets, but after this 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Right.
it should start getting more open.
Next meeting, since you're gonna, Amy, since you're gonna have some numbers on the 15th, so we'll meet on the 17th?
That's tight because usually that takes a few days to make sure that we're talking the
Okay,
price
when,
of the same amount.
Thursday the 24th?
No.
Thursday the 24th or Tuesday the 22nd?
No, the 22nd.
Can't do that.
the 24th,
That 24th should be.
okay, the 24th, everybody?
Thursday, that's a Thursday.
I'll
Thursday,
be,
I won't be around.
I'll be remote.
Yeah,
I
we're
can
getting
log
to
in.
vacation.
Yeah.
What week is that?
How many?
24th, you wanna have it at,
24th.
For a long weekend.
everybody can make on it, you wanna have it early, like at 4, because there's no school and, no? Okay, no,
Maybe not.
5:30,
5 maybe,
5,
but yeah.
okay? 24th at 5.
Anybody else out of town? Just, Armand?
Just
I'll be
Yeah,
out
out
of
of town
town.
next
Yeah,
month.
I don't know if I can join online. I don't know where I'm gonna. be.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
You're out of town too.
I'm not in town next week.
24th at 5.
If I could join remotely, I will.
And that's a Connecticut holiday, French Canadian Day, in case anyone's.
Beautiful. Everybody wear flannel.
Swear and drink beer and
Right.
fish, I remember my
Bring-
grandfather.
Bring Labatt's.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn? Okay,
Who said that?
I did.
Armin.
Armin and
Armand?
Patty.
at 5:16.
5:15.
Who said